think we're live.
Okay, cool. This is exciting.
I always find it very strange. My behavior changes every time that I hit the record button, and I don't know why. I mean, it's purely psychological because there's really no difference. But I always find my behavior changes.
Yeah, I guess the cost of error seems to be higher then.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Mhm.
So let me give you a brief outline of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm just trying to meet people within the Scrum community. Roughly about, I don't know, maybe for the last couple of years, I noticed that there were more and more people coming into the community that I simply didn't know or hadn't met. And being out here in Australia, it's often very hard to meet people because the conferences are a lot smaller and the distances to North America and Europe are far greater. I'm sure you experience the same thing in
Hmm.
Argentina.
Yeah, same thing.
And so I wanted an excuse to go out and start meeting people, and so I
Mm.
decided that the way I'd do it is by doing interviews and asking people just basically what brought them to the Scrum community. How did they come to the Scrum community? And so
Hmm.
really that's how I've been structuring these interviews. By and large,
Cool.
everything is very free form. I don't have a terribly great structure to it.
Hmm.
And I let the conversation go wherever it needs to go. I typically talk about, I try to talk about three things. What brought you into the community? What are you doing now? And, where do you see things going from here?
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so those are really the three questions that I tend to structure the whole thing around.
Hmm. All right. Uh, so what brought me? I I think well, I started as a developer, as a software developer when I
Mm-hmm.
was 19, and ever since I started coding, I um, I always felt like this kind of um, trade union view of the knowledge worker world.
Can
Uh,
you explain that? Can you?
yeah, as if I always well, I read about Augusto Boal's definition of oppression later in life, but I think I constantly felt oppressed, and I felt my colleagues were being oppressed. Augusto Boal defines oppression
Mm-hmm.
as, oh, paraphrasing because I can't remember the original, but it's something like a monologue where there should be a dialogue.
Mm.
I felt I was not being heard or listened to,
Yeah.
or I was not even being asked about so many things.
Mm.
Um, I know when I started, it was I know the basics: what time to go to work and what time to leave and where to work. But then more and more stuff like what was it that we developed, or the quality, or who I worked with, when we got to or not to meet the client, stuff like that. It was like I naturally had like a tendency to see things from a meta perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always like saying, "This is not working. This is not working. This is not working. Something needs to change." And then I remember I in Argentina it's very common. I am not sure if it's the same in Australia, that while you study, you work full time or almost full time. I remember I worked for 6 hours a day. Um, so all my jobs there, I took them as learning jobs. Well, then I realized that all my jobs were going to be learning jobs. But um, so my plan or my strategy was to change jobs. I mean, I didn't thought it from before.
Mm-hmm.
It was to change a job a year. Don't stay in a job for more than a year.
Wow, that's an
Um,
ambitious target.
yeah, and whenever I change job, I wanted to change not just the company,
Hmm.
but something. Well, transcendent is too much of a word, but some at least minor shift in the main focus of the work.
Hmm.
I knew I wanted to have a company someday, software company. So I said, okay, I want to learn the different aspects of software development. So I switched from size of projects and different things, and then I remember I had always developed object oriented, but I took a class. It was actually focused on object orientation, but it was with Smalltalk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really got into it. And after like 15 days or a month, I decided I wanted to land a job where I was going to use Smalltalk because I wanted to learn it, and I said I'm not going to learn it if I don't get paid for it, or I mean if I don't get if there's not any commitment that's bigger than assignment for the university.
Mm-hmm.
So it was either an open source project or a paid job or something like that. So I got one. It was not that easy, but and then I think I got without knowing it, I entered the agile world.
And so,
Because the first
uh,
was that
sorry, what time frame was this? Was this
this is 2004.
2004?
Yeah.
And at what
Yep.
point were you into small talk?
2003.
2002,
2000.
2003?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Um, and then my first assignment when I entered the Smalltalk job was to write an automated test.
Oh, very
Um,
nice.
because it was a very, apparently low risk assignment.
Mm.
I couldn't break anything. At least I could build some false positives, but I couldn't actually break anything. So and I loved it. And at that time, I'm not sure if it was. I think because there were some agile books on the tables on the desks that I picked up one, or I already knew about it. I can't remember, but I remember I read the Extreme Programming original book, the first one.
XP distilled, or was that the second one?
No, I think it's XP explained. I think
Yep,
that's
yep,
the first one.
yep.
Um, and I started reading it, and it made sense, but it didn't make any shift until I can't remember which part I read. Something about maybe continuous integration after I had read TDD, and I pictured um, so was a tree, it's like a cell
Mm-hmm.
growing,
Yeah,
and I said, okay, I get this guy. This is brilliant. This is organic
yeah,
because it's going to grow slowly, and at the same time, he's making sure the thing doesn't die in the inside.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, this is brilliant. The thing is alive, and if you don't take care of it, it will just rotten and die.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the organic or more, yeah, I know human, but animal
Mm.
view or natural view of a thing. And I just fell in love with that. And I said, okay, well, this is the way it should be.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so then I remember I got tired of that job for different reasons, and you tell me if I'm making this too long.
No, no, no. This is
If
great.
I,
This is really interesting, actually.
uh,
I quite honestly, I see a lot of similarities between the path that you
uh,
took and the path that I took, because I used to do a lot of small talk as well.
Cool.
And my very first book was also the same one that you read, XP Explained, Extreme Programming Explained. And so, yeah, I can see a lot of similarities between, my own personal path and what you're saying as well.
Cool. Yeah. That always feels good. Then I remember I got tired of the company. And the development assignments I was getting were boring. I was doing too much legacy code, or on the spot, production environment fixing, and they were developing a brand new system, and I wasn't going to take part of it, and I received a job offer for something that apparently felt like the perfect job. It was RAP process engineer. I didn't know what RAP was. I quickly read about it and I said, well, this is what I want, because I've been thinking for so long about how developers work. Now I will have the chance to help them, not actually developing, but helping them change the way they work. So I said, brilliant, this is what I want to be. I want to be a process engineer in a big company, in the methodology group of a big company. We were so smart. We knew perfectly well what they needed. We built a majestic methodology. We said, okay, this is the way to work, and now we're going to evaluate you on this. And I was so convinced for like 2-3 months, and then I could see their faces of horror, their despair, when I started pushing them to start using all the templates and all the. It was not just that much about meetings; it was a lot about templates. And then I picked up again the extreme programming book, and I said, okay, I'm going to start tweaking this, because this is not going to work. But it was interesting that after I had all the talks with all the teams, I realized that the thing they were not getting, I was starting to getting it at the time, was that RAP was incremental and iterative. And they were waterfalling like hell.
That's a very common complaint of RAP, actually, that you end up doing waterfall.
It was plain waterfall. So I was starting to understand iterative and incremental development. So I remember I read Craig Larman's book. I think it's Iterative and Incremental Development for Managers, or something like that. And I said, okay, so we need to transmit to these guys the notion of iterative and incremental development. That's the thing. That's what they are not getting. So I promoted a series of 2-hour trainings for the whole IT department. I hadn't ever given a training on anything. And I liked it. It was all PowerPoint and people sitting and all. But I realized I enjoyed trying to convey this notion. And I enjoyed the moment in which I still remember that the things starting to heat up when I said after like 20 minutes that you needed to have running software after, I think I said 4 weeks. Then someone got up, and I mean, always in every training, it was 20 people per training. That's impossible. That doesn't make sense. And that's going to make our jobs pure hell. So that I got a little bit nervous at that moment, but I enjoyed the discussion. And then after a while, I got really disappointed with what we were doing. We were actually in the end implementing some rational tools, and it was boring. Like, after a year, more or less, I got really tired of it.
Mm.
And then I got back into school for doing some research work. Nothing. I mean, aspect-oriented programming. I was finishing my thesis. I had finished my thesis on that, and so I had some free time,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, okay, well, I want to start learning about this because I'm really passionate about this agile thing. So I said, let's start looking for training. I want to really understand this, and the training I found, the most clearly defined training, and that seemed to have recognition in the industry. It was the CSM.
Right. Okay.
So I started reading more about Scrum. I hadn't read that much about Scrum. It was all XP until that time. And I found it interesting, and I said, 'cause I didn't find too much training on XP, and it didn't seem like, I don't know, I couldn't find many references to it. So for like half a year, I said, okay, I might save some money. I didn't have that much money at the time, so I had to fly to either the States or Europe and pay like $1,200 or euros. I just couldn't make it. So I remember one day, out of frustration, I wrote an email to the Scrum development list, saying that I wanted to take the course, but I didn't have the money for the trip and the course. And if any trainer could fly over to any place in South America and charge less than $500, then I could go. And I thought that there were many like me.
Yep.
So I encouraged as well other people from Latin America, South America, to join me so that we can gather enough interested people. So I got a couple of emails from, I think, like 3-4 trainers. One of them was from Tobias Mayer.
Yeah.
Well, the first reason why I got really caught by his email was because he said he wasn't going to charge anything.
Yep. And that's always a good price point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the others didn't mention pricing. He said, if you don't manage to get any money from this, I mean, to get people, I don't care if I don't get paid. Please try and pay my air ticket and my hotel, and I'm going to be okay.
Cool.
I remember he told me, I'm not sure if I talked with him about this again, but he might have gone confused, like everybody in the world, about between Argentina and Brazil. Because he said, I owe a lot, but I think he said to South America, because 2 South Americans have changed the way I see work. Augusto Boal and Paulo Freire.
Okay. Yep.
Paulo Freire wrote about pedagogy of the oppressed, and Augusto Boal about theater of the oppressed.
Right. Okay. Yep.
I hadn't read about them at the time. So I remember I entered his website, and at the top it said theater-based agile training or something like that. And I was really into theater at the moment. I had taken acting lessons for like 4 or 5 years. Actually, I had considered dropping the software world, leaving the software world, and just focusing on acting.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
And I said, okay, this has to be the guy. And it's great that he's not gonna charge, but this has to be the guy. So I started setting up. It was my first business venture. I mean, I had always been an employee, and I had to start selling tickets. You know, it was very, very low price. I think it was $300 or $250, or I managed to get a place for free.
Yeah.
And so I started emailing and spamming everybody. And actually, we filled the course. I took it finally, and I started to understand things. But as soon as we finished the course, I started telling to Tobias, I think you should change this, you should change that, you should change that. Yeah, I would change this part of the course, that part of the course.
And so
I mean,
why were you saying that? What was driving you to make those suggestions?
um, I remember a lot about PowerPoint. He, believe it or not, he was using PowerPoints at the time. And I said, Tobias, I think you have too many bullets here. I think the concept is not clear here.
Right.
I think people were bored at this part. I think when you give us the vision statement for this game, I think it's not very clear. And I saw people getting confused about it. It was great, this part, blah, 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 stuff like that. So it's like I got really engaged into the dynamics of how the course was delivered. That was a surprise for me, because I hadn't ever been in that area before. And we quickly, he stood here for like a week, and we quickly became friends. There was a lot of chemistry.
Yeah.
And I remember he said, he actually invited, he put a poster on the Scrum Exchange on the wall of the CSM. The Scrum Exchange was going to be, I think, 2 months after this CSM course. And I told him, Tobias, no one is going to fly to the US for a conference on Scrum from here. It's too expensive. There's no way. And he said, okay, well, but you should come. And I said, no, I'm not going to fly to the US. I don't. It's in 2 months. It's impossible. And he said, well, no, you can stay at home. You're not going to pay the entrance. It's just a ticket. So I did some math, and I more or less the same money that I actually managed to make from the course. That I thought I was going to lose money, but actually the what is the exact money I made? I used it to buy the air ticket.
Oh, very nice.
And that was a month or two afterwards. I remember that all the trip to the Scrum Exchange was, I think the word was startled. I was amazed. I was, but all these people with all these ideas and all these games. I was so much into games. Because it was games, but connected to theater.
Yeah.
So I remember from the Scrum Exchange. I mean, names I remember a lot, but I remember being quite touched by Matt Smith, David Chilcott, Michael Spade. I think Luke Hoffman did some stuff. I wasn't that shocked by it. Kurt Pearson.
Yeah. Boy, that's
not
a
session game. Yeah. Well, actually, Kurt was the one who was going to come in the first place before Tobias. He was the first one who wrote me.
Yeah.
I know so many things on stuff that I hadn't ever heard about. Like learning from errors, and I remember I started proposing changes on games, and it was natural. The whole thing was natural. So when I came back to Argentina, I said, okay, I gotta do this for a living. Cool. I just have to. And it was a big coincidence that because of this aspect-oriented thing and the thesis thing that I told you about before, we had won with my thesis partner. We had won a prize from Microsoft. It was from Microsoft Research. So I at the moment I had flown at the beginning of that year to Redmond, presented the thesis, and I met a guy from Costa Rica who was the owner of a company, was a partner of Microsoft. Because the presentations we did was for the Microsoft research team and some partners that were interested. It was all compiler stuff. So we stood in contact, and then just right after the Scrum Exchange, the guy writes to me and tells me if I'm interested in a job in Costa Rica.
Oh, excellent.
And I said, okay. I think I had broke up with my girlfriend at the time, so I was ready like for an extreme
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
So it just appeared just in front of me,
Wonderful. Yeah.
and I talked with him, and it was very interesting because he wasn't sure what my role was going to be,
Hmm.
but it was a services company. It's the company that does automated migration. They have a very sophisticated engine for pattern detection and mapping. So they had very successfully been providing services to companies, migrating. So they did a semi-automated migration.
So
And
migrating, what are you talking about? Data migration, or are you talking about?
no, it's no source code.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Source code. So
yeah,
I know
yeah.
they did a lot of work from Visual Basic to Visual Basic .NET,
Right.
from COBOL to Java. They got all sorts of different paths of migration.
Yeah,
They had a very sophisticated engine that detects patterns and transforms them.
yeah.
Um, but the guy had always wanted to do some consumer product with that technology.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what they put up as an internal startup inside this company, and they wanted me to take part in that effort. They didn't know. Well, I mean, they thought of me as a technical guy, so more of the architecture aspect-oriented part.
Hmm.
Um, so I flew. I mean, I think it was like a month later. I was flying to Costa Rica, and they didn't know what work to give me. They didn't know what the project was going to be about. So I said, I'm going to use Scrum here.
Good on you.
These guys don't.
Excellent.
These guys don't know what Scrum is yet,
Yeah.
but we're going to use it like hell.
Great.
I'm gonna be the Scrum Master. Um, I'm gonna have a lot of fun here. I did. I was a very yeah. I shaped the way we did product development and actually coding and all the team dynamics, and yeah, there were so many things that I was trying.
Hmm.
It was experimental bliss. Um, I had a great time as a Scrum Master. I formed the PO and all. I think we did a great job, but we did a lousy job, and I found that later. At I mean, today you would say customer development.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
read
you,
it. We built a product. I think they spent $2 million, and
mm,
we sold 7 copies.
so you built a
Uh,
product that no one really wanted.
yes, and
Yeah.
we did focus groups. We did paper prototyping,
Yeah.
but we failed. So, but I think we did a lot of things really great. So, and I learned a lot about it.
Yeah. So looking back at
So
it,
that's what, yeah,
what would you do different? What would you do different uh,
yeah.
to
But I
understand the
had thought
client?
about it. Yeah, I would have been more insistent because I was, but I should have been way more insistent with the product owner to hit the market after 3 months
Earlier.
instead of
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, his main fear, that actually it was my fear with my own ideas, and then I realized later that it's nonsense, was that they might steal the idea,
Mm. Yeah.
or we might create a bad impression
Hmm.
on the market with lousy software. So the main lesson is the market is way more unpredictable than what we want to think. I think that's the main difference, because internally, I mean, it was the lesson of focusing on delivery instead of discovery, focusing on building the thing right instead of the. Actually, we did, we underestimated the difficulty of finding product market fit.
Right.
And luckily, it was not my money, because it was a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that is a lot of money. It's a very expensive mistake to make.
Yeah. So let's say that's the way I entered the Scrum world. Then the Scrum Alliance training world was when I got back to Argentina, because I was really missing my country after, say, a year and a half. I had gotten. I mean, we had a very hard time inside that team. I mean, inside the company, in finding good testing people. Apparently, in Costa Rica, it was very scarce, and they were slower than what I thought was healthy in incorporating XP practices.
Yeah.
So I told them that if they wanted, we could experiment. If they wanted me inside a team, I volunteered to become part of the team as a testing, continuous integration oriented team member. And I remember I told them that we could experiment with rotating Scrum Master. Not sure it was the best idea, but it was interesting for me.
Yeah.
To be inside the team. Maybe I took it as an experiment as well. I wanted to feel what it was to be inside the Scrum team.
Yeah.
And I thought I can't change these guys. I mean, I can't change the way they develop if I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think I did a good job at that, but the PO needed better coaching. So maybe it was not overall the best decision.
It's hard to know that at the time, though, especially as you start out. It's very difficult to know, it's very difficult to know, especially from the business point of view, because a lot of Scrum Masters are very technical, and they tend to focus on the technical aspects rather than focusing on the big picture.
Yeah, and that's the kind of POs we have grown so far. The more delivery project manager like POs.
Yeah.
Who are obsessed about the plan and not the ROI. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard one, though. That's a very difficult problem to solve.
So you tell me when to stop with the entrance to the Scrum world, but then I came back to Argentina and I said I want to live in Argentina and I want to do Scrum.
Cool.
So I don't know what is it that I'm going to do, but I'm going to start coaching. I didn't know, and luckily, shortly after that, after returning, I mean, I was doing some remote marketing work for the Costa Rican guys, and a guy that I had known in the CSM course, that had taken the course with me, and who had actually been my project manager in the most waterfallish project I had ever been, that we both suffered, developed the whole year for nothing. The user saw it after 1 year and said, worthless. It was so hard. The guy said, I'm currently coaching some people on Scrum. They wanted a training, and I think you can give a way better training than I can. And so I said, okay, let's make it. Internally, I said, why the hell is he saying that? He never saw me training, and I never trained.
That was a very
But
brave step, though. I mean, that must have taken a lot
yeah,
of courage to do that.
yeah. I mean, I just said yes, and I was really confident, and I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun the course I took, Tobias's course.
Yeah.
Actually, well, he hadn't seen me, but I had been Tobias's assistant three, four, a couple of times
Yeah.
after I had taken the course, and I think I traveled for 3 months in Europe before that, and I remember I flew to co-teach a part at a course that was being given by Boris Gloger and Jeff
Right. Yeah.
Sutherland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I had done some co-trainings and stuff,
Mm-hmm. So you'd seen some of the
but
different styles that the
yeah,
Scrum trainers. Yeah.
yeah, I had seen Stacia as well in Costa Rica, Stacia Broderick.
Yeah.
Um, and I said, okay, off we go. Yeah, 2 days, let's go. I prepared my PowerPoint. I took Tobias's PowerPoint and I changed many things. And I don't know. I just didn't care. I mean, it's not that I didn't care. I said to hell, this is going to be a good course, um, and it was. I think it was a very good course. I realized I could do that successfully. Um, the worst thing about my first course was that getting into arguments with people.
Yeah. I
I
remember
got
those days too. Yeah.
I got really angry, really angry,
Yeah.
and that made me suffer and made the other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, so I've walked a long path since then.
Mm.
I'm not getting angry any longer. But and then these guys wanted another course and then another course. And then I found another course, blah, and we wanted with the guys who we had taken the CSM with, maybe some others, together with this guy Juan Gabardini, the guy who invited me to this course.
Mm-hmm.
He said we need to have a conference here, and I said, yeah, let's make it. And he said, people know you more here than they know me, so why don't you write an email? Because I had created a user group
Right. Okay. Yeah.
some before the CSM course.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be the user group for Agile in
Mm-hmm.
Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
We had maybe like 100 users at the time, not very active, and it was mostly from people who had taken the CSM
Mm-hmm.
in Costa Rica and Argentina. So I remember I wrote an email saying we need to make this more physical,
Mm-hmm.
more real, more touchable. So why don't we make a conference? So a couple of us got together and I came up with a name that I think it's a cool name, and we still use it. It's in Spanish it's Ágiles. Ágiles, it's hard because in English you don't change the adjectives, you don't put them into plural,
Right.
but it could mean like agile people, or if you say we are agile, it could mean many things. I love words that can mean many things. So when you read it, it's not agility in itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's agile people.
Yeah.
It's the word agile, but with telling you that we are many and that we are people.
Mm-hmm.
That was the goal. So we organized the first Agiles. I'm not sure that I wasn't that present during the organization as much as I wanted to. I was a volunteer together. We started gathering a lot of people, and we had like 400, 500 people here in Buenos Aires at the year. I think that kicked off the whole thing, and we're going to have the fifth one this year in Peru.
So if you're having the fifth one this year, that was 2008 that you had that first conference?
Yeah. And we brought over Tobias.
And were you a Scrum trainer then, or were you?
Oh no, yeah, that's right. I was not, and I remember I wanted to go to the Agile conference.
Yep.
It was too expensive, so I think I submitted. It was hard to find, but you could be a volunteer. It was hard to find the button where you could ask to be a volunteer. But I remember I told them my story and all, and they accepted me. I flew to Toronto.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was way, of course, way different from the Scrum Exchange, but I loved it.
Oh yeah. Very big.
Yeah, big and
lots of people, lots of crowds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot, and I enjoyed being a volunteer. I became close friends with Alexei Krivitsky, the Ukrainian CST.
Yep.
The guy who did the Lego City game.
Yeah.
We both were volunteers, and we shared the bedroom.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. we posted signs on places. We did basic stuff. I met a lot of people there, and I remember an Agile because Agiles, our conference, was going to be, I think, 3 months after the Agile conference, 2008.
Right. Okay.
So we wanted. I had the idea that we could run some courses, international courses, with the guest speakers before the conference, so that with the earnings we could fund the conference.
Yep.
I prefer that over sponsors.
Yep.
So I knew if we did a CSM with Tobias, we could get some money, and then some guys from other company were in contact with the Poppendix, so they were going to come. Yep. So we prepared a lean development course, and there were some people asking for a CSM in Spanish, and I think Tobias's CSM was sold out. So some of the people who were preparing the course at the conference with me told me, why don't you become a trainer yourself? Or Tobias told me. And I said, well, I'm not ready. I don't have that much experience, so no, I don't think I can do it now. So I remember Toby said, you should do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it at all by all means. He said, we need a guy like you in the trainer community, or so come, you're gonna make it. So I said, no, this guy's just nuts. I mean, I want to be a trainer, but it's going to be in 1 or 2 or 3 years time. And I submitted my proposal, my form, and I remember I got an email right before Toronto, right before the Agile conference, from Jeff Candiff.
The managing director of the Scrum Alliance at the time.
The MD, And he said, well, you're almost in, but we need to have a talk. So he said, can we have a talk sometime, somewhere in the world? And I said, well, I'm going to Toronto. He said, I'm going too. So we met there. There was one CST who had objected to my saying that I'm not going to get too much into it, but we had a long talk with Jim, and he said, okay, that's all I need to hear. I'm going back to the board or whoever was choosing CSTs at the time, and I'll get back to you in a couple of days. And he sent him an email and said, okay, you're now officially a trainer.
Cool.
I remember at the time they had sent me an email from Costa Rica asking me to go back if I could for a couple of months. Because they needed, they still needed the shift in the way they were doing things. And I remember I flew there after Canada,
Yeah.
after the Agile conference, and I think I received the email telling me that I was a trainer the first day I got there.
Mm.
And I bought I think I bought a bottle of wine,
To celebrate.
and yeah, and I pour a glass for each of the team members and the PO, and I said, well, this is all thanks to you. Obviously, I quit, but thanks so much. I love you guys, and I learned most of the Scrum I have learned with you. So, and I mean, I flew there for supposedly for 10 days, but they say, okay, if you're going to leave, we need you for some time here. So I stood there for 2 months or 3 months, I can't remember. I changed my air ticket, and I became a trainer, but I did my first training like 4 months later.
Yeah.
At the opening, I mean, the days before the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a great time ever since. And the course, of course, changed so many ways and times and all. But
As it does.
it's absolutely different from what it was at the time. But yeah, and I think I think I ran a session with Tobias at the Agile conference, but I was mostly interested in I don't know, the timing of the sessions, and if people would leave the room at the right time, and if the food was there and all. And that I remember I had been to I hadn't been to any open space. I had been to what they used to call the Open Jam at the Agile conference, which was supposedly like open space. So I liked the concept and brought it over to our conference, and no one went there. And then I started reading about open space, and I understood that we had horribly failed, because the Open Jam and the open space we did was parallel to the conference, and that doesn't make any sense. But I fell absolutely in love with open space later, and I became I wouldn't say I'm not a Scrum or Agile zealot, but I think I'm an open space zealot.
Really?
It's like, you can solve anything with open space. I mean, I'm overstating it, but I think it's amazingly powerful.
So I'm exactly opposite on this particular point. I've had some bad experiences with open spaces early on, and so I have no time for open space. I really don't enjoy them. I go to them, I try and participate, I try and be a constructive member of the community. But inside, I die a little bit for every open space that I go to.
Oh, whoa, what a shame.
And maybe that's because I haven't been to a good one, but honestly, I do die inside.